Pokemon is dead and buried. I don't think Pokemon can really ever recover because to me right now, it's kind of in the grave. How can Pokemon be in the grave if it's worth 92 billion? Well, it has to do with the release of Palworld. Palworld has caused a catastrophe in the Pokemon community, sparking quite a bit of controversy, as it mainly shows the contrast between Pokemon and Palworld, with Pokemon having reused animations, reused models, as well as repetitive gameplay that spans across multiple generations with very, very little variation in changing, as well as the constant controlling of the player and the player's actions throughout most of its games, which has led to Pokemon players accusing them of using ChatGPT, which you can't really prove either way, or being a shocking gimmick game, which is just Pokemon with guns. I don't necessarily agree with that notion because Power wouldn't be so successful if it wasn't actually a good game. Most of the recent Pokemon games, on the other hand, have been quite bad. Arceus, for example, tried but wasn't that good. Most of the early Pokemon games were quite good and I still play them, but some of the more recent ones are quite bad. Not to mention all the terrible graphics that took a noticeable downgrade from Arceus. With all this, it's kind of easy to see why Palworld has been dominating, mainly because of how buggy and terrible most recent Pokemon games have been. Now, a lot of people would make the notion that this is mainly because of the Nintendo Switch. And I can understand that, it's kind of a weak console, but at the same time, the Breath of the Wild does exist, and it has incredible graphics. And you could say that is art direction, but Pokemon is still choosing to make this art direction. The Pokemon games have had quite the noticeable decline over the last few years, and a lot of the community seems to have the same notion that newer Pokemon games are not that good. I still love some of the older games. My favorite Pokemon is Tyranitar. Watched the anime when I was a younger kid. I mean, who didn't? I played the games, I used the trading cards. I really enjoyed collecting those when I was younger. I mean, who doesn't, man? But the state that this shit is in is just so depressing. And Palworld really did exemplify that. Pokemon is at a crossroads right now. They could continue making the same game they've made for the past 30 years, and it's going to be trash, and nobody's going to really care about it. It's going to be exactly the same as all the past bajillion games they made over the past 10 years. And nobody's really going to want to visit these games. And it will probably continue to decline. I mean, it's still going to rack in oogles of wealth and quite a lot of racks of money. The Game Freak will still have a net profit, but nobody's going to talk about it. And nobody's going to care. All hope is lying for Pokemon on this next game. And if it sucks, then it's over. It's just straight up over. The merch is probably still going to be selling, as well as the trading card game is probably still going to be racking in a lot of money. And both of them are probably going to make or continue to make billions. Pokemon has had a huge cultural impact, but please name one thing about culture that changed since Scarlet and Violet released, since Sword and Shield released, and even since Arceus released. You can't really name anything, and that's just sad, bro. I really feel for all the Pokemon fans because I can understand them being really mad about the state of Pokemon, as well as being mad about the success of Palworld and the complete and utter trash state that Pokemon's in. I understand if you're mad, but you don't need to take it out on Palworld or the indie studio that made Palworld. You should be mad at Game Freak for refusing what Palworld tried to do, and that is make the game better.